right.
Okay.
Welcome, Ron Whitehead, U.S. National Lifetime Beat Poet Laureate, named so by the National Beat Poet Foundation. That is a long title. The first thing I want to ask you, Ron, what does it mean to you to be a beat poet?
Hi, Belinda.
Hi.
It's an honor to be here with you. It's good to see you, almost in person. And well, to be a beat poet in this sense, in our sense of this interview situation for the National and International Beat Poetry Foundation, um, is one of the greatest honors of my life. Um, have been a natural born anti authoritarian, an outsider, an outlier, an outlaw by choice. Um, to it's a long story, and so to find the doorway to open to to get into it, I have by choice because I have so many interests. I love poetry. I love literature. I have all my life. I consciously became a poet when I was 7 years old, and I have intentionally. People love to label you, uh, so they can put you in their box where they feel comfortable with their identification of you. But people, it's also a way. That's the negative side of it, but it's also the labeling can be positive. And but I don't like to be put into boxes, so I have over many years added after my name at the end of a poem, Ron Whitehead, idiot poet, Ron Whitehead, fool poet, Ron Whitehead, outlaw poet, Ron Whitehead, scholar poet. And just depending on the situation to keep the reader wondering, what the hell? Who the hell is this guy? Where's he coming from? Where's he going? And because, well, I don't know. Every morning I get up is the first thought, one of the first thoughts I have is, what new adventure can I get into today? What direction can I take into this wilderness of not knowing today and discover um, something new about myself, about this amazing world? And so I'm always exploring, I'm always searching for new talent in the arts, in poetry, in literature, in music, in painting. But I'm also continually exploring and reading, by educating myself, reading old, new, old works, classical works, new works, avant-garde, cutting-edge works. And language is an experiment. It always has been and always will be. So, but back to your question, to be honored and recognized as a Beat Poet Laureate is one of the greatest honors of my life. Growing up on a backwoods wild nature Kentucky farm, um, a nature boy, a farm boy, I realized early on that the postman, and it was a man, was Santa Claus. And so, and my dad in particular, but my dad and mom, my dad dropped out of school in the 10th grade. I asked him in an interview one time, he passed away 15 years ago after working at the coal mines for 43 years. He was a coal miner and a farmer. I asked him, why he dropped out of school. And he said, I'd rather be working than going to school. And so he started working at the coal mines when he was 16. But he loved poetry. He memorized poems. He loved literature. He turned me on to the, the novels of the Kentucky author Jesse Stewart, to Louis L'Amour, the Western author. I still love the mountain novels and stories and poetry and the Westerns as well. Um, but so I started subscribing as a boy to book clubs, biography, geography, um, so I could experience the world from where I was on the farm through books and the lives of people. And in
May,
my teens,
may I,
my teens, I started reading the beats.
may
Go
I say
ahead. Excuse
something?
me.
It sounds like what you're saying and what I'm understanding, that being a beat poet is being a poet who cannot be confined to a specific box, and the message and the meaning is the main thing, rather than constricting yourself into a certain pattern, which you could do and probably have. But it's all about experimentation and the meaning of a poem, something like that. Does that sound about right?
If I had to select one word, it would be freedom. Uh,
Ah,
beat means freedom to me.
oh, good.
Freedom. Um, because I mean, coming out, I was born November the 23rd, 1950, in the midst of the worst blizzard to ever hit Kentucky, in Owensboro, Kentucky, the first to be born in a hospital in my family, and I love storms, but we were coming out of, we were at post World War II era children, and the Korean War was getting ready to gear up and start, and to people, the original intent of for public education for students was to become good citizens, yes people, and to do what they were told. And I was never inclined. I got no problem with doing what I'm told, especially if I'm asked to do it and told why I'm asked to do it. I will do it as good or better than anybody else. I'll work hard, but I want to have the freedom to choose. So freedom has been so important to me. One reason I love democracy, um, because of the freedom, the spirit of what it means to be beat on the road, going to see all there is to see, the unknown, um, the purple mountains, majesty. I've seen purple mountains out west. Um, People come to the United States to visit. They say, I'm going to stop in New York City. I want to experience America. I hope, if not on this trip, at some point you're able to rent a car and drive from coast to coast, north, south, east, west, across the USA, because it's so diverse, so magnificent and beautiful. And the free spirit of this country still exists despite all the problems we have today. So it's the spirit of freedom that is at the forefront of why I honor and respect the label of beat poet. And it's a brave few handful of folks chose to go their own ways against all odds, no matter what, paying whatever price, um, in order for them to be their own authentic selves. And to me, there's nothing more important than to be your own authentic self. No,
Right. Yeah.
instead of letting the system put you, shape you, and put you into the box they want to put you in. I've always refused to do that.
Mhm. When Well, who are some of the beat poets that have influenced you the most, if they have?
Well, all of the original beats, of course. Um, and there's Herbert Huncke, William Burroughs, Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac, Neil Cassidy, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, and in the beat community, there are so many people who want to draw lines and say, well, these are the original beats, and no, these are the original beats. And my feeling is the beat spirit originated with the folks I just mentioned, and then it just expanded and grew from there and continues to grow today. And that's why it's such a joy, a privilege, and an honor to be part of this fantastic organization called the National and International Beat Poetry Foundation, because we are keeping the beat flame alive. We are continuing in the tradition, and the beat tradition goes back to the beginning of storytelling and poetry, which is the beginning of the human race as we know it, when the bards and the skalds traveled from town to town and listened to the stories of the people and turned them into poems and songs. And the poems they often sang accompanied by an instrument, the voice being the oldest instrument. But we love stories, and so our tradition goes back to Homer and Sappho and comes up through so many others in the United States. Walt Whitman is the progenitor of the beats in our country. William Blake and the British Romantics, major influences, the American Transcendentalists as writers, Ralph Waldo Emerson, um, and the handful of writers who are recognized as members of that early group, northeastern group, were mightily influential on me as a teenage boy, and the British Romantics and the American Transcendentalists, and then but Whitman proves through his work that language is an experiment, and
Right. Um, well,
and he taught us so much.
mhm. I'm very impressed with how busy you are. Um, I understand the passion and the excitement of doing all the things that you're doing. But would you take a moment to tell about some of the projects you're working on now or ones soon to be happening and things you're planning? Because I know you probably got a bunch of those.
Well, I just got back from Estonia, where um, it was my sixth visit to Estonia. 12 years ago, I was invited to tour the country with a band and with performers from around the world. I did a big tour then in 2012 and have been invited back continually, and became the UNESCO writer in residence there in 2019. But I just completed producing the third 24 Estonia's third 24-hour nonstop music and poetry insomniacathon this evening, a few minutes before I arrived here in your room for this interview. I had a meeting at in Old Louisville at the Chapel of St. Philip Neri, Neri, which is a gorgeous chapel, big facility, which is the location come July 26th through 28th for the last Insomniacathon, which will be a 57-hour nonstop music and poetry and arts happening. Um, and folks, including many state and national Beat Poet Laureates, performers are coming from nearly every state in the country for that 57-hour event. So I met with the production team there to go over details. It's the last Insomniac-a-thon because there will be future Insomniac-a-thons, I hope, but I won't have anything to do with producing them. I am now officially passing the torch on to younger folks. And I've been blessed to work with young folks for decades now. Having had many mentors, I chose years ago to become a mentor. And so I mentioned earlier that I'm always on the lookout for new voices in poetry, in literature, in music and art. And
you're doing
so
something
I write.
in art?
I write. Well,
doing...
the Ireland event we were doing, I produced the final Gonzo Fest. I produced in December 1996. I produced the official Hunter S. Thompson tribute, and I brought in Hunter and Johnny Depp and Warren Zevon and Hunter's mom and his son, and historian Douglas Brinkley and David Amram, and all these other folks. It was amazing. And then for years, I wanted Louisville, Hunter Thompson's birthplace, where he grew up. I wanted Louisville to pay tribute to their native son, even though Hunter spent his many last years at Owl Farm outside of Woody Creek, outside of Aspen. And so I finally teamed up with Denny Humphrey, and we produced 10 Gonzo Fest, amazing events at various locations around town, including the largest one was on the waterfront. 8,000 people came to that one. And but the final Gonzo Fest was a phenomenal success. And then a couple of people planted the seeds, asked me if I would produce one in Europe. And so the person I was working with in Dublin, which I love, I've done 3 tours in Ireland. I love Ireland. Dr. Rory Patrick Feehan, who wrote his dissertation on Hunter S. Thompson, a brilliant young man and writer, but he could not because of the war in Ukraine. So many refugees coming in, staying in hotels and that sort of thing in European countries, including Ireland. He couldn't land a facility for us to have the Gonzo Fest there, so we had to cancel that. But now there's going to be one in New Orleans. That's official. I think it's in July next year. They've asked me to present the keynote address for that. So I stay involved in that. I get up. I'm working. I work constantly. I collaborate. I love to collaborate with people. I learned a long time ago that when I collaborate with other creative artists, I am inspired to create new work myself. So an example, I write every morning. This morning, I get up at 3 or 4 a.m. and I write for 2 hours, a new piece of work. I've got a new book I'm 325 pages into. And so I always have that going on, my daily writing. But I monitor all my other creative projects, like my newest album. My 41st album, I think, with my band, the Storm Generation Band, will be released by Son of Blast Records at the last Insomniac-a-thon, and that album is titled "I Refuse to Be an AI Smartphone Zombie." And but it's actually, I co-authored the piece with Dr. John Rocco, who is one of the great beat scholars, and has authored some brilliant books on the Beat generation. And so I took a piece that John wrote on Walt Whitman and the antinomian tradition, which is a tradition that goes back to the Protestant Reformation and standing up against authority and power. And I did a cut up of sorts, and I I used my work and I combined it all together. So it's a beat generation update treatise on what happened in the beginning and what's happening now. And so that new album is coming out. So I'm constantly working on new books, new albums, new recordings, doing live events. And so that's some of the stuff. I'm honored by what you have in your hand there.
Yes, let's talk about that for a minute, and maybe read one or two pieces, depending how long. Do you have it handy?
That's
But
entirely up to you.
Yeah, so this is recently published by the National Beat Poetry Foundation, and it's has a lot of biographical information in addition to your poems. And this is a new series that Debbie Tucson Kelliday is heading and giving beat poets a chance to tell their story and to publish a book of their poems. And you were the first in the series.
And I was really honored by that.
Mm.
I was surprised the day I got a notification that I was the Kentucky Beat Poet Laureate. And then I was even more surprised and honored when I was named the National Beat Poet Laureate. And then the icing on the cake was to be named the Lifetime Beat Poet Laureate the same year, a couple years ago, that Johnny Depp, who I've done some work with at the Hunter Thompson tribute, became a Beat Poet Laureate. And so I was happy about that because we were both born in Owensboro. I still send him information about things that are going on that I think he would be interested in, and he was really humbled by that honor. So anyway, and then this book
Wouldn't it be so cool if all the Beat Poet Laureates, including Johnny Depp,
yes.
Bob Dylan, and others that aren't coming to my mind right now, if we would all meet, I would definitely hobble over to that one way or the other.
Yeah, and which makes me think now that you've said that, I need to plant the seed in David Amram's head, who David and I have been friends for a long time and done a lot of work together and a lot of touring and performing, to write a book. And I'll tell him I'll help him any way he wants me to, so he can have a book in this series. Mm-hmm. That would be fantastic. He's trying to finish up his newest autobiography. So I'm thinking once he gets that done, I'm going to start hammering to him to do a book with us. Yeah.
Oh, he would have so many great stories, and he knew Kerouac personally. So he's bound to have a bunch of really interesting stories.
I never thought anybody, I'll tell you something about David. I never thought anybody could keep up with me. I have a natural born high metabolism until I met David Amram. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I have been in so many situations where David and I have done a performance, and then David says, and we visit with people outside after the performance, and then David says, man, Pops, I'm starving. Let's go get something to eat. And so, I mean, if there's not like an after party, then we go get something to eat. And he starts telling stories, and he's a walking, talking cultural encyclopedia. And all of his stories are amazing, and they're like nonstop. And so I want to hear them all. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. And so finally the restaurant is closing, and David said, come on back to my hotel room. I want to finish this story up. And we go back, and he's got compositions that he's working on, some tacked all over the walls of the hotel room. He's composing new music while we're touring. And then all of a sudden I realized that it's getting light outside. And this is just one example. This is the Netherlands. We were doing 6 shows over there. And I said, David, man, we got a performance at noon, another one at 3, and another one tonight. I got to have a little nap, man. And he said, oh, man, yeah, you're right. We should get a little nap. And so I gave in. I called Uncle. He won. So anyway, he's an amazing person, amazing creative artist. My God.
Yes, yes. Well, do you have like one poem you'd like to read to us as an ending?
Yes, one. Um, deliver me. Deliver me from the rule of patriarchy, for patriarchy has sown destruction long enough. The time has come for us all, female and male, to turn away from greed and destruction and become healers. Deliver me from racism, for we are all dirty potatoes floating in the same tub of polluted water. Help us respect our beautiful differences while recognizing that we all have more in common than we have different. Deliver me from the ravages of climate change and the murder of Mother Earth. Help us wake up before it is too late. Help us heal the planet. Deliver me from fear. Remind me constantly that fear is forever overcome by love. Deliver me from power. For power without love and wisdom inevitably leads to war and destroys anyone and everyone in its path, including the one who has power but lacks love and wisdom. Deliver me from the disdain of arrogance, elitism, privilege, and the illusion of superiority. For no one is in any way better than anyone else. We are all equal. We are all in this together. Deliver me from the violence of greed. Grant me the desire to live simply and to share earth's bounty with others. Deliver me from the silence that enables any and all manifestations of abuse, war, and evil. Grant me the necessary balance of love, power, and wisdom, enabling me to be a nonviolent warrior for peace, love, and understanding. Grant me the ability to be a good neighbor and to dwell in harmony with nature. Thank you for the bounty of life, for the beauty of nature, for poems and songs, and for the love of family and friends.
Yes, yes. Second that. Beautiful. And thank you so much. I am honored to know you, in at least the amount that I do. And I'm also honored to be a part of this great organization. Um, Boy,
Thank
Debbie had a great idea, didn't she?
She did. She did. And Belinda, that's mutual. That's certainly mutual. And it is a great honor, and I'm glad that you hold the position that you do. And
Well,
is there any chance that you'll make it to Connecticut
I
this
don't
year?
think I'll be able to. I
Okay.
will look around and see if there's some way I can do it. Uh,
Okay. Well,
I'm
I
not
look forward to the day we can meet in person.
Okay, I would love to, love to. Well, thank you so
Okay.
much, Ron. I'm once again honored. Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.